This is Reno Lovison, executive producer at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com, providing multimedia content showcasing multicultural and age-diverse people, art, music, theater, and events happening in or related to Chicago. It occurred to me that we have a number of interesting interviews that we've produced for our sister site, AuthorsBroadcast.com. Several of these interviews and discussions feature Chicago authors, and I thought it would be interesting and entertaining to include them here at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com and share them with a new audience. The one I've selected for today's episode is a visit I had with Chicago author Steve Bellinger shortly after the publication of his science fiction book, Chronocar. This is a science fiction time travel novel that takes place in Chicago during two different time periods, largely on Chicago's south side. So stand by in about 20 seconds and you'll be able to enjoy a remix of my Author Showcase interview about Chronocar with Steve Bellinger. Please be sure to like, share, or comment if you enjoyed this podcast, and be sure to listen to one or more of our other interesting episodes about Chicago people, places, and events. If you need video production for your business or organization, be sure to check out renoweb.net. Hello and welcome to Authors Showcase. I'm your host, Reno Lovison, and I'm here today with my guest, Steve Bellinger, who is the author of an exciting new book that we're going to learn about today called Chronocar. And we're going to learn about that, and we're going to learn a little bit about Steve. But first, I want to thank Steve for being with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great to have you here today. So, Steve, let me see. I was looking at your bio, and I see you grew up in Chicago.
On the west side.
On the west side,
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I guess you shout out to your high school, right?
I went to Crane High School, which is actually closed now. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right. So,
yeah.
just want to sort of get an idea of your Chicago roots.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And I understand from your bio also that, and I think this is kind of interesting, that you were, it had mentioned that your mom grew up, or rather worked for a publishing company. And
Right.
that's how you sort of got interested in reading and interested in books. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, she worked for actually a printing company.
Okay.
And she worked with the printers. She was a collator. I'm not even sure what that means. But she would bring books and magazines home.
Sure.
And, and she was an avid reader, so it encouraged us to read.
Yeah.
And she brought all sorts of things home, so we would read different things, and that's when I discovered science fiction.
Great. So what were some of those early books? What was something that
Oh,
you
like anything
remember?
by Isaac Asimov, the whole iRobot series, anything by Heinlein.
Okay.
I discovered a little bit of Arthur C. Clarke later on. Just a
Okay.
lot of great stuff.
Yeah. I don't want to say I'm not a science fiction fan, but I just haven't read a lot of science fiction.
Okay.
And I tend to be sort of a nonfiction reader. And then
sure.
if I read fiction, it tends to be classics. I probably have said that on this show half a dozen times. But, and so it's just, I think it's a matter I never get around to it. Although,
Sure.
Arthur C. Clarke, I've read a couple. And some of them, they stick with you for a long time because you really remember, like, wow,
sure.
this is really cool. And, especially with the way technology has been changing. So. Which makes me think about this is the fact that you went to IIT.
Right.
And you were obviously involved in technology there.
Well, my degree is in psychology, actually.
Oh, okay.
But it's still science. It's
Okay.
still science.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So my question was whether that informs your interest in science fiction at all, or
Well, my general interest in science,
Yeah.
keeps that going. And even now, I spend more time watching documentaries on TV than anything else. You
Sure.
know? So I'm
that's a function of our age,
I watch Star Trek too. Just that I've seen them all already.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But science fiction is interesting because of the people who like the novel. Easily a third of the people I've talked to are not science fiction fans, and I think it's because some people don't quite realize what science fiction really is. There's people associated with comic books and
Sure.
and even things
Fantasy.
like Lord of the Rings and things like that. But that's not science fiction.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
so
that's
give
all.
us your take on it. Give us
Well,
your
well,
reviews.
it's not actually mine. It's Asimov's.
Okay.
I read it years ago, and I've yet to find the reference again. But he says that a science fiction story, in a science fiction story, the science is so crucial and central to the story that if you remove it, the story falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that means that Star Wars is not science fiction.
Okay.
You give them swords, horses, it's King Arthur.
Sure.
You got rebels fighting an evil empire.
Right.
Now, it's
right.
a lot more exciting because of the spaceships and everything, but the science is not central to the story. Star Trek, take away the Enterprise, you got nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
Usually. I mean, there are some episodes that don't get that deep into the technology, but that's the basic difference.
Sure. Let's talk about that a little bit more. I want to take an early break, and we'll come back and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. We're going to talk a little bit more, obviously a whole lot more about Chronocar. Okay? So stand by, and we'll be back in a minute. Wow, this awesome feel-good book reveals why cool super chefs and health nut docs are dishing about the extraordinary powers of olive oil, nature's liquid gold. Savor deliciously healing surprises. New research deserves high fives because olive oil, a key ingredient in the Mediterranean diet, and other healing oils are making a big splash around the globe. Oil superpowers can lower the risk of facing a bad ticker, the big C, and even stall Father Time. Bring on the butter. When paired with oils, this 20th century forbidden fat is a new 21st century health food. Combining olive oil with other oils can help combat fatigue, fight fat, and help you morph into a lean, energized superhumanoid at any age. In the healing powers of olive oil, you'll discover unusual home cures and scrumptious, yummy, fresh ingredient recipes. Pick up your favorite bottle of EVO and experience the delicious healing powers of olive oil today. Olive oil, bon appetit! Look for the healing powers of olive oil, a complete guide to nature's liquid gold, wherever you like to shop for books. Chronocar is a story about time travel. So the time machine comes to mind. So can you tell me how does this book, is this book at all informed by that? I mean, that was first of all, the movie was something we all loved as kids, right?
Sure.
I mean, didn't you love that?
Sure.
Great movie. And so would you say that this, was that an inspiration, or does it really have nothing to do with your story?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I enjoy time travel stories, but being a hardcore science fiction fan, I have yet to see a time travel story that deals with the science of time travel, whether real or imaginary.
Okay.
They deal with people going back in time and changing things or going to the future and discovering things, but how does that actually work? Okay. And part of what I wanted to address here was the science of time travel, what the actual mechanism would be, what the actual laws of physics might be that would apply to it.
Okay. I would say H.G. Wells pretty much stayed away from that.
Well, yeah.
I mean, and especially at the time that he was writing, probably was a good idea to stay away from that.
Sure.
Didn't know too much.
Sure.
So I think we could probably do a whole episode talking about that, but now you've sort of intrigued me, so now you have to tell me just a little bit about, what have you learned about time travel, in as much as, is it something we should even be fantasizing about?
I don't think is physically possible.
Okay.
What we call time travel today, traveling very fast and ending up in the future like the Planet of the Apes, that's time dilation. You can't control that.
Right.
You can't go to tomorrow at 2 o'clock or yesterday at 4. It's a side effect of the space travel. But in the story, if there's kind of a theme to it, it's the fact that there are always consequences to everything. I mean, if, say we drive here tonight, well, there are consequences. We've burned fuel. We've added a little bit of pollution to the air. There is more to it than my just being here versus somewhere else. Well, then there must be consequences to traveling through time. Just the very fact of traveling must have some effect on the universe.
Okay. And so you address that to some degree in your... I'm guessing roughly 200 and some pages here.
Yeah. Well, a little less than that, but yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that's interesting. I look forward to learning about that. So, H.G. Wells was little or no consequence as far as your.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I was a big fan of H.G. Wells, especially. I mean, I love all the classic sci-fi. I mean, you haven't lived till you've read the original time machine or the original War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a challenge I'd make to any filmmaker, to make a film of War of the Worlds based on the original movie, original story.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, and let's give a challenge to any filmmaker out there who wants to make a film of Chronocar, because that would be
no
exciting.
Argument from me.
Okay.
Yes.
So now here's another part of the twist that I think our viewers would be interested in. This is an African American character who is going back and finding a scientist in 1919, roughly, who had first conceived of the Chronocar.
Exactly.
And this young sort of contemporary fellow goes back and he's going to build this device that he had read about. We shouldn't have to say, well, this is an African-American character.
Sure.
But let's say in today's environment, it's still newsworthy, so we're going to talk about that. So tell me what that means to this book, or if it doesn't mean anything. I'm okay with that, too.
Well, it's a valid thing because the story is about a time traveler, but it's the black experience. I mean, if it were written by an Asian person, it would be an Asian take on it. You know, he goes back to turn of the century Bronzeville, and he gets involved in the big race riot that takes place in 1919. We talked about how you can't take the science out of science fiction. Well, you can't take the black characters out of this story because it is about the black characters.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's not necessarily written for black people.
Sure.
I mean, because a lot of the people who've read it are not black, and they've enjoyed it. Sure. But it's part of the setting.
Right.
You know, I
mean,
it's
part of your experience.
Well, exactly. So I mean, no matter what story you write, if you write it, it's still part of your experience. I mean, whether you realize it or not, it's going to be about a white person, a black person, a Latino person.
You bring your own experience to it, whether you're fiction or nonfiction writer,
That's
whether
very true.
it's a biography or a memoir. You're in this. I'm sure we'll all learn a lot about you. All kinds of deep, dark secrets that you hope to never uncover are going to be in here.
Yeah, that's on page. No.
So we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and then we're going to talk very specifically about the plot and very specifically about Chronocar. Okay. If you're a nonfiction author, journalist, or professional business writer in the Chicago area, consider becoming a member of Midwest Writers Association to network with colleagues and learn more about the profession of nonfiction writing. Okay, so we are back here with my guest today, Steve Bellinger, the author of Chronocar. And we left off talking a little bit about how the black experience interjects itself into this story by way of your very own life, and also how it affects the characters. Is there a point to be made, and is there a point you want to make about it?
Well, I mean, I guess there is a message there that things haven't changed as much as we think, which is also sort of an underlying theme of the story. There's a scene where he's walking around and he sees the elevated tracks, for the CTA, and same thing we use now. So,
exactly. The interesting thing of the backdrop of the city, although Chicago is a city that tends to reinvent itself a little bit more aggressively than some other cities around the country, but you're right that these things like the L track, great movie moment where it sort of fade from the L track 1919 right into Chicago.
Sure,
would be
exactly.
Very cool. So filmmakers out there, think of that shot. That would be great.
I'll talk to this guy.
Well, great. So give me a quick overview of the story, synopsis involving the various plot twists that you want us to know about without tipping us off to anything.
Okay, well,
important.
It starts with Simi Johnson, who is the son of a slave, is also born a genius. And as a child, he stumbles upon the Principia, the Isaac Newton classic, and learns that he can understand it. And, he's caught up in this and wants to learn more. Without going too much into detail, he manages to get something of an education, and then he comes up with this idea for time travel and a chronocar, but he can't build one because the technology doesn't exist. So, moving up to the year 2015, an IIT student discovers the plans for it and decides to go back to visit the now Dr. Johnson. Well, the only time he can find him is in the year 1919 when he's living on the south side of Chicago. So he goes back to visit the doctor, meets his beautiful daughter, which he did not know that he had, and they get
the doctor's beautiful daughter.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have this modern guy goes back to 1919, and then there's the romantic plot twist, right?
Exactly.
What do we do?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And then from that point on, it's dealing with the things that he does that affects history potentially, and the problems that arise from just simply traveling through time. I'm told that it is a bit of a roller coaster ride. People call it a thriller, which is not what I was expecting. I wanted to write just a good, solid sci-fi story.
Sure.
But a lot of non-sci-fi people are reading it and calling it a roller coaster ride, saying that it's very thrilling and that the ending is a very big surprise.
I think that's a great way to sort of end your synopsis, because who doesn't want to read a book in which the ending is a very big surprise? Yeah. Because, don't we all, we're like, whether it's a movie or a book, I'm always, saying, I got to pretty much know how this is going to go. Mysteries, of course, you never know, because they usually have two or three possible endings. But it is nice to know that this has a good plot twist at the end. And I know that I've read that in here, which I'm going to read in a moment, a couple of the reviews that you've gotten on this book. We're here, again, with Steve Bellinger, talking about the book, The Chronocar.
Unlock the Power of You shows you how to maximize your personal potential by harnessing sustainable long-term change, and how to realize the powerful source of infinite energy that exists within each of us. Once you have the keys, you can immediately start driving your life in the direction you want to go, toward whatever destination is most inspiring and joyful to you. Full of inspirational and practical advice designed to challenge old beliefs, robotic behaviors, habits, and patterns that no longer serve you. Packed with expert, powerful techniques and guidance that will unlock the highest possible level of life balance, health, happiness, inner peace, and success. Get it now and get ready to unlock the power of you. Available from Aviva Publishing.
So we're back here talking with our guest today, Steve Bellinger, the author of Chronocar. And I have to put my glasses on for this part because I want to read a couple of things that people had written. The exciting time travel kick-ass. It reads like a thriller, complete with a wicked twist that slaps the reader upside the head. And the story is intellectual, funny, and touching while playing with paradoxes of time travel. The Chronocar is one wild ride. Those are two reviews that you've gotten on the book. And this is the part that I was particularly interested in. It says, I'm a history fan, not a sci-fi buff, but a friend recommended this, so I read it. I loved it. The time travel aspect is fun and interesting, and the history, mostly of Chicago in 1919, is well done. So because we're a Chicago-based show, very often we have people, sure. Chicago authors, and Chicago always creeps into whatever it is they're doing. And so, that's a particular interest of mine.
Sure.
And so how did you research some of the historical aspects of the book that
hours and hours in the library. I mean, you do have the internet, but I needed to read the actual newspaper accounts because there are references to the riot that are based on fact. I mean, fictionalized a little bit, but how the riot starts is based on the
okay. And we're going to experience a little bit of that in here based on the actual history.
Exactly.
And then you alluded earlier to the fact that the character. The main character is more or less based on you, roughly, which authors often do.
Sure.
But you had mentioned something about how your grandfather sort of was in here as well.
Well, yeah. There is a scene I can give a tiny bit of away where Simi is trying to escape the bad times in the South, and he's escaping with a friend. And they spend their last few pennies on some food, a jar of jam and a loaf of bread. And while they're laying it out, he hands the jar of jam to the young man, and he drops it immediately. Well, he freaks out, he cries, he walks away thinking we're going to starve, while Simi takes out a knife and scoops up what's edible from the jam and makes a meal out of it.
Sure.
It's a story my grandfather told us for years.
Is that right?
And we didn't realize he was trying to teach us about perseverance and not giving up.
And not wasting food, right?
Exactly. So that little bit got into the story. That's sort of a tribute to him.
Yeah. As we travel in the Chronocar, we're going to learn about Chicago history. We're going to learn about some unfortunate racial incidences that are part of our city's past.
A few things that might surprise people that existed back then.
But more importantly, and perhaps not more importantly, but we don't want to lose sight of the fact that there's a great romance here that travels through time and space, I'm sure, right?
Exactly.
And so it looks like there's a lot packed and awesome twist at the end.
Yes.
So to recap, we want to say that our guest today is Steve Bellinger, and he is the author of The Chronocar. and is available at your local favorite bookstore. Since it's a Chicago book, I'm sure it's going to show up on the shelves there too. And if you go in and ask for it, then your local bookstore will be sure that there are copies available locally. Sure. But of course, there's always the ubiquitous Amazon is available, and also you can download a couple of sample chapters either at Amazon or at the publisher, which is
Barking Rain Press.
BarkingRainPress.org. So, Steve, thanks so much for being our guest today.
Well, thank you.
And I hope everyone will go out and check out a copy of the Chronocar and enjoy it. Thanks again, Steve, and let's wrap it up.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
I hope you enjoyed this archived Authors Showcase interview from authorsbroadcast.com. If you need video production for your business or organization, be sure to check out renoweb.net. Thanks to Stephen Solomon for composing the Authors Showcase theme song. Be sure to like, share, or comment if you enjoyed this podcast, and be sure to listen to one or more of our other interesting episodes about Chicago people, places, and events.